should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
What's up, Top Rope Nation? Episode 200 has arrived. It's a milestone show for us. It's been almost 5 years in the making. We've made it. We've been counting down for weeks now. When would we hit episode 200? For a while, it looked like it might be the Fastlane post show, and we really did want it to be the Fastlane post show, so we adjusted the schedule a little bit. We got it right before Fastlane, so hopefully this will be kind of an entertaining way to take you into this weekend and the pay-per-view. It's going to be a little bit different show than we do weekly in that our listeners are kind of driving the show tonight. We decided to open it up to mailbag questions. You send in your questions to topropenation@gmail.com. You sent in the questions on our Facebook group, on Twitter. We got a lot of them, so I pulled them all together. We picked out a handful of them. If we read your question on the air, you're going to get a free gift from us, so I'll be in touch about that in the days ahead. But before we get to the questions, fellas, I got to check in. We're all here. It's Ryan Drosty, Kyle Ross, Justin Joint. Kyle looking good tonight. He's got his Top Rope Nation cap on. He's got a Top Rope Nation t-shirt on, and just as I'm introducing him, he's taking a swig of beer. He's ready to go. Kyle, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I would like to start off tonight's show, episode 200, with a series of apologies, believe it or not. Number one, I'd like to apologize to our good friend Adrian, who was on the show last week. The face I made during your first round pick, there was nothing personal. It was actually a naked woman walked behind the computer here. I can get away with that because my wife never listens to this show. So I'll go with that as my excuse. I would like to apologize to the fans who will be saluting tonight of Top Rope Nation. As I watched the video, it seemed like I had a real nervous twitch there. Couldn't stop playing with my hair. So I thought, what better reason to get out the old Top Rope Nation cap? So I wouldn't play with my hair this week.
It's a preventative measure. I
It is.
love it.
Preventative. It's a very fine hat, too. I'm looking pretty good, quite frankly. And number three, I'd like to apologize to you guys. I was so thrown off by that first round of the WrestleMania draft last week that, in retrospect, I think I missed some key points I wanted to make. But looks like we might get a reprieve tonight from one of the listener questions, so I'm very excited about that.
Nice. And yeah, Kyle talking about the WrestleMania draft we did on the show last week. Again, that was all Justin Joint's idea. He came up with the theme and the kind of the qualifiers for the matches that we were to choose. And we do have the poll right now. It's up on Twitter, twitter.com/topropenation. You can vote on who you think won the WrestleMania draft. And as of the last check, Justin Joint, you are winning. You've got a healthy lead right now. So congratulations on that. Did you expect that? And how's it going tonight?
All I got to say, I deserve it. I deserve it. I will say, as far as that controversial Adrian pick with his first pick, that tag team match, actually a pretty fun match. After he made the pick, I watched it that night, or maybe it was the next night. Anyways, it's good. And if that had been like an actual opener and not on the pre-show, I think it'd be a little bit more fondly remembered.
Yeah, and he made the point as he drafted it too. He talked about how this would be a good one to like open his pay-per-view. So I think he was looking at the draft a little bit different than us. He was trying to put together like a cohesive card, whereas what we usually do is just try to get the top-notch matches just up and down the board as best we can. So I think his strategy was a little bit different than ours. But yeah, it's a fun match. And so congrats to Justin right now. We'll see if that holds up in the next 24 hours, but he is winning. As I was making the graphic for it, I sent out to you guys because you both had said you thought I might win. And I do think I have a pretty strong group of matches, but I told Justin, like after I looked at his draft top to bottom, I was like, I don't know, man. I think you might win. You have a pretty good shot here. So that's what we're seeing right now. So we're going to get to the question and answers here in just a second, but I do want to just say, first of all, thanks to Kyle and Justin for doing this show for almost 5 years now. 200 episodes is quite the milestone for a podcast. I read somewhere that the average podcast doesn't even last 10 episodes. So the fact that we're at 200 is pretty amazing. I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that. Also, shout out to our families for putting up with us doing this once a week, sometimes twice a week at different times in the history of the show. The late nights, the pay-per-view post shows and everything. But we do it because we're all good friends here. We love talking wrestling. We love interacting with our listeners. And I want to thank all the listeners for your support over the years, whether you've been listening to us for almost 5 years now. If you're a recent listener, every single download, whether it's on YouTube or any of the podcasting platforms, helps us so much in our reach and getting out to new listeners. I mean, the best way for this show to continue to grow is by word of mouth. And we've seen that through, I think, our Facebook group in recent months has been huge since we started kind of investing our time in that. You can find the link to the Facebook group, by the way, here in the YouTube description or on the podcast description. Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion. But I think that's been big as far as kind of building up our community, and then people just kind of recommending the show to other people. And I think that's how we've seen our show continue to grow and find new ears. And lastly, I want to thank all of our patrons, because I've said it for months and months and months, actually years. The best way to support the show is by becoming a patron of the show. You get bonus content. You're investing in our success. You help us buy new equipment. You help us get new microphones. You help us get new headsets and so on. And so I wanted to throw out, you always see their names scrolling across the bottom of the video stream, but I want to throw out a shout out on air to every single one, no matter what tier they're a member of, $1, $5, $10, doesn't matter. Shout out. Number 1, Tim Jensen. He is our longest patron of the show. He's also been our graphic designer since day one. He has designed all the Top Rope Nation logos. So thank you so much, Tim, for being a longtime supporter of the show.
Number 1 Baron Corbin fan.
Yes. Derek Chappelle. You've heard him on the show many, many times. You've heard Tim on the show, too. He was on our AEW post show, All Out, last fall. Derek Chappelle has been on the show many times. He was just on a few weeks ago. Strong supporter of the show. You're going to hear from him later on when we play our voicemails. Aaron Graham, good friend of mine, big supporter. Ryan Huffman, same thing. Liam O'Rourke, obviously talented author, talented podcaster, has collaborated with Kyle over on Squared Circle Gazette and supported Top Rope Nation for years. So we thank Liam. Andrew Zarian of Matmen has been a patron of ours for a long time. Justin Gosman of the TCB cast, which I guest on occasionally. Rick Skelton, Garrett Gonzalez, Fight Game Media, Michael Jenkinson, Kyle Ryan, our social media guru, Gabriel Benson, and Sean Skelton. Thank you so much for being a patron of the show. If you want to join them and join in on a smaller knit community where you get even closer to the show, patreon.com/TopRopeNation. And of course, subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts. Leave us that 5-star rating. Leave us a written review. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming live shows. So, fellas, let's start off right away with this mailbag. The listeners are dictating what we talk about tonight, and we got a lot of them. They're pretty wide ranging, from ancient history in wrestling to modern era of wrestling. I'm going to throw it right away to a question from Michael Jenkinson, who I just read his name, a patron of the show. He wrote in for the podcast, and he said, I am a researcher myself, and I find the legacy of the business fascinating. So that I can officially make this a question, I'll ask, who had the biggest impact on pro wrestling between, now if you're a newer fan, you may not recognize these names, but they're important in the history of wrestling, Ed Strangler Lewis, Jim Londos, Gorgeous George, or Lou Thez. And I don't know if the other guys want to chime in or not, but for me, when you look at those names, Lou Thez was obviously like a legendary champion for years and years and years. And a lot of people would probably say Lou Thez. But for me, if you look at where wrestling is today, the showmanship, entrance music, characters, I'd have to go with Gorgeous George. It was Gorgeous George who popularized entrance music in pro wrestling. In fact, he was using Pomp and Circumstance, I believe. The same song Randy Savage used years later. That over-the-top character with the robe and the perfume in the ring and everything. Like, I would have to say, of those names, the guy whose influence is most noticeable in the industry today would be Gorgeous George. Kyle, what do you think?
Would have been.
Go ahead, Justin.
Well, I was going to say that would have been my answer too. In my memory isn't super strong, but I remember reading, and it's a really, really fun read. Aubrey Sitterson's The Comic Book Story of Professional Wrestling. Highly recommend that. Ed Lewis, it might be kind of underrated about his impact. I didn't have a chance to go back and read the comic book story for this question. But if you jump on Wikipedia, I know that's not what you should do, especially if you're a student. But they're very quickly, it says that, he was a pivotal figure of the Gold Dust Trio, a traveling road show that was a precursor to wrestling tours. And that kind of started like undercards and promoting full events instead of just one matches, which also kind of led into wrestling storylines and creating feuds. So he played a major part into where professional wrestling was going, but obviously Gorgeous George took it to kind of a whole nother level.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I guess I initially read this question wrong. You're right. It's Gorgeous George based on where the business was and where it went to. With Londos, correct me if I'm wrong, Meltzer has talked about like him being like the all-time drawing card of the first half of the 20th century, correct?
I think like long term.
Yeah, like, and even like beyond, I mean his drawing power is something unique. My area of expertise like does not go well past 1984, but and Vince's national expansion, but yeah, everything you guys said is spot on. And yeah, as far as impact, I think that's the key word in Michael's question. It would be Gorgeous George.
Yeah. I think the first half of the century, the only other name that would stand out would be Frank Gotch, who, a proud Iowa boy, by the way, from Humboldt, Iowa, Tim Jensen's hometown, our graphic designer.
I've ate at the Hardee's in Humboldt many times.
Yeah. There's a massive statue when you first enter town of Frank Gotch that is really, really cool. But Frank Gotch was, they say, in the 19-teens, behind Babe Ruth, he was like the most famous athlete in the country at the time. And so his career was fairly short, and then he died really young. But there's stories of him going to like Cubs and White Sox games, and like the whole team, the professional baseballers waiting in lines to get his autograph after the ball game because they knew Frank Gotch was there. That's pretty mind blowing. So he was a huge name too, and very instrumental in the business's history. But if you ever get to Iowa, the Tragos Thez Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame is something you should visit for, especially this era of professional wrestling. And they have a lot of the artifacts from Frank Gotch's history there, being from Iowa. And Charlie Thez, Lou Thesz's widow, had been involved for years and years and years with the Hall of Fame. I actually met her on a number of occasions at the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame. Super nice lady. So making sure her husband's legacy was living on as well. But no, that's a great question.
Yeah, and I looked something up with Londos. He was the number one draw in the business for 13 different years.
Wow.
So yeah, that record's probably not going to be touched. Even as as long as guys are around now.
They call that a Ziggler rung nowadays.
Hey-o.
Yeah. Good question, Michael, though. That was a really good question. All right, let's go to a different one. Let's see. I'm going to throw this one to Kyle first because I know he's probably got some questions worked up. This one comes in from Michael Schmidt in Wisconsin. And Michael asks, what is the most overrated match in WWE history, and what is the most underrated match in WWE history? And this is a wide-ranging question, and I know we sent these out ahead of time, so I'm not putting these guys on the spot, but this seems like one that Kyle would have thought about a little bit going on air. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because I wonder, when we use the terms overrated and underrated, what criterion are we judging that by? Are we going by Dave Meltzer's star ratings, WWE canon? What? If we're using, Jonathan Snowden tweets from March 17th, 2021, when he called Hogan Rock today the greatest match of all time. I think that's a stretch.
I should have seen your reaction last week to
Did
that
you see
pick by Justin.
WWE just had they released a 5-minute video of the 10 greatest WrestleMania main events of all time. You want to guess what number 1 was?
I'm assuming
Tell
it was
me.
that one.
No.
No?
Rock Cena.
Wow.
Rock Cena's the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time.
I mean,
According to WWE.
Yeah, by the numbers. So it's funny you brought up WWE lists, Justin, because, as Ryan so eloquently put it, he did share these questions with us ahead of time. I don't really like surprises, quite frankly, so I demanded it, and Ryan was so kind to meet those demands.
Unless it's a naked woman walking behind the camera.
Yes, that's the only thing that would be a surprise. Yes, absolutely. Let's be very clear about that.
As he stated earlier, yes.
Anyway, so WWE a few years ago put out this 100 matches you must watch before you die. I think it was just something to kind of actually promote their archives, something they did very little of, very topical today. The list was quite good for like a WWE list. Like it hit all the right notes. And like, I was looking at the list, I was like, man, there's not really a bad match on this list. There's not anything that I don't think is great. There were a couple, and I'll bring them up here. I'm getting there here. So what did you got? How do you approach this? Like when you hear the term overrated match, what are you judging that on before I give some choices?
I think my initial reaction would be just like match quality. I think people rave about a match, but it's not really that good as far as between the rows. But I think you could also look at it as far as its position in WWE canon, as you would say, Kyle, like how important the match actually was to the history of the industry, or even like that particular year that it took place. What do you think, Justin?
I think you have to judge it based on what you hear from other fans. Like, Hogan Andre was absolute shit in the ring. I mean, but it's a great match because of what it was in that moment, drawing 92,000 people. And then the flip side of that is, can a match be overrated because everybody thinks it's the greatest in-ring, bout of all time?
It's a very subjective term, isn't it? I think is what we're all getting to. So, it's funny if you're going just by simply star ratings, like I was thinking about this, and matches that I think deserve significantly lower star ratings than Meltzer. He's the guy who everyone goes to for the star ratings. I mean, man, there's a bunch of stuff from the last 2 years, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, you could go to this is not, I think, what anyone wants to hear. Talk about the 2 Royal Rumbles from this year. He gave those Rumbles 3 3/4 and 4 1/4 stars. I didn't think either match was average.
Yeah.
So, it could be something as simple as that. I think there's a lot of stuff from NXT in the last 2 years that's overrated. Again, to go something recent, Gargano Kushida. I did not think that was a match of the year contender at all. So
yeah,
that's where I would lean to if you're looking purely star ratings. I mean, I could just rattle off the tag team elimination chamber match from last year. I think he gave over 4 stars to. Thought it was an average match at best.
Mm-hmm. I think that your age would matter so much. We kind of talked about this on the WrestleMania post or draft, not post show, last week. With I think one like younger fans would throw out to this question would be Razor Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 10. I bet if you ask someone like under 25 this question, you'd get several people saying that match is so overrated. What's the big deal? Because you weren't around when it happened.
That's so key.
Yeah, you don't understand, like how industry changing that match was for people that had never seen a ladder match before, which was most people outside of the Stampede Wrestling territory, or the people that were at the show where Brett and Sean had the ladder match, in 92 or whatever.
Smack 'em, whack 'em.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's so subjective. So it's a really difficult question.
Well, it's funny because my answer was kind of the flip side. I very much was present for all those matches I just referenced that I think are overrated. And I think, that kind of speaks the other way, that I'm an old man yelling at a cloud. in some regards to the modern product. This will be awkward, and I want to do this because it'll give you a chance to plug, Ryan, for future stuff down the line. If you're talking about WWE canon and matches that they celebrate that I'm not as high on, there were two that came to mind. One, and if you're a listener to the show, this should not surprise you, Triple H and Undertaker at Mania 28. Yeah, I could say the same for Meltzer's star rating. He gave it 4 3/4, the same as he gave the Michaels Undertaker matches. The match is not as good as the Michaels Undertaker matches. Stop it. Stop it. And then the other one, and this is where we get a little awkward, I would say the Iron Man match, Brett and Shawn, is not like this all-time great match. I think it's a very good match between two guys I like a lot. I don't think it was a match of the year contender. I'm not sure it was a great match.
Well, and I think that's where, you kind of get into the whole, like, what did the match mean in the moment type of deal? Because I don't think I'm alone in that match kind of brought me back to wrestling. And it was just the hype around it. It was the two guys involved. When I was kind of fading out of wrestling, I'm watching guys like, Hulk Hogan, no offense, God love him, rest in peace, Yokozuna, Psycho Sid, these bigger guys who aren't really known for their in-ring work. But now I'm looking at the guy who was my favorite when I left, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and the idea of them having a match, that was going to go on for 1 hour kind of just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're going to do a show actually about it. Maybe we could save a lot of there. I just have Shawn Michaels is my favorite guy. I knew damn well he was winning the title that night. And it is more than just the match itself. I mean, I actually think the match, and again, when we break it down on the show, maybe I should save this. There's some things I don't like about the match itself, but it goes beyond that. Like I was not like really fired up about that match. I don't share that for you, but again, it's subjective.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was very much the same as Justin. And I think when Justin and I first met, we actually talked about this match quite a bit and how it really pulled me back to wrestling. And like from that point on, I've rarely tuned out from wrestling. Like even when I wasn't watching every single week, I was plugged in, like following the results. That was the match that, blew my mind at the time. Greg's in the chat. He said exactly to what Justin was saying. He said, Greg says the Iron Man match was great as far as building the character. I mean, the build for Shawn Michaels, those training videos were amazing, I thought. I know Brett always jokes about him because they made him look like the hungry young lion and Brett's gingerly jogging on ice up in Canada. But like, if you weren't invested in Shawn Michaels before, and then you watch the training videos with him and Jose Lothario, like it did so much to establish him as the guy you wanted to see win the title. Really,
that's funny. I just don't have that view, but everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, I thought that one might come up too. But
did you really feel like that in the moment too, Kyle?
What? Yeah, like I was not like that match did not bring me back. I mean, I was someone who was watching anyway, and I just remember like, yeah, Shawn's obviously going to win this.
In the match itself, you're just like, eh.
I think doing no fall. I think if it's your first Iron Man match on a national level and doing no falls in the first 60 minutes is unforgivable booking.
I can see where you're coming from, but I respectively disagree.
Yeah, I disagree too, but I understand people's criticism of it.
I mean, again, I don't want to go down that lane because we're talking. I mean, I don't think it's a top 30 WrestleMania match.
Wow, that's a hot take.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know there's a question about unpopular takes, but yeah, I mean, so I don't know. For me personally, to answer that question, there is another half, I guess, to this question about underrated.
Underrated, yes. I just want to throw out Chad in the chat. Said, judging by Twitter right now, tonight's AEW Lights Out women's match is the most overrated match ever. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But I guess getting a lot of praise on Twitter. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. Probably watching it late tonight, actually. Underrated match. Okay. What do you got for this, Kyle?
This is where, I don't know. Why don't you guys go?
I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. What was the no one really talks about it too much, although like the show was talked about as kind of an iconic show, but like that The cruiserweight match on Calgary Stampede with Taka Michinoku and
Great Sasuke.
That I remember loving that match at the time, and I think people acknowledge it was like a really good match, but nobody really talks about it as like a standout match during that period in history. But I remember thinking like, man, this light heavyweight thing might really get going after that. It didn't, but it was an awesome
that's probably
match.
why no one talks about it. Yeah, and you know, to be fair, there were a lot of comparable, if not better, WCW matches at that time. This is such a hard question for like underrated.
Yeah, the problem with underrated is, I mean, just professional wrestling in general. If anything's even decent, or an angle's decent, it's gonna get overblown.
Well, today for sure. This is awesome. Yeah.
I'm trying to think like, and again, underrated is so subjective. Like, you know, is there like some match that like, oh boy, yeah, I spent so much time thinking about the overrated. I of course didn't.
Things that I don't like feel like I hear enough about, like Sami Zayn winning the NXT title versus Neville, and even like, in fact, that might be my favorite time in wrestling. From there to Kevin Owens just nuking him to win the title just months later. All of that is great stuff. Cesaro and Sami Zayn in NXT right before the network launched is great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How about Brett Flair from Sold Out 98? That's a pretty damn good match that doesn't get talked about much. I mean, everyone talks about Brett's early entry into WCW was botched, which it was, but I mean, to get in there with Ric Flair, wrestle on pay-per-view, his first wrestling pay-per-view for the company. He was at Starrcade, but didn't wrestle. I mean, that was a damn good match.
Show popped the number, too, despite not having any of the big NWO names on it. And they actively went out and buried everyone involved with it, which was reason number 17B why that company is no longer with us. But I'm trying to think of like
I got two more. Sorry, real quick. And I only bring them up because I don't think people appreciated him in the moment because of how much they freaking hated Roman Reigns. But his two matches versus AJ Styles were really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it? That was right after 32?
Yeah, it was the two pay-per-views after WrestleMania 30. Yeah, the April and May pay-per-view of 2016. The May one in particular is just like outrageous. AJ just showed up with a point to prove in those matches. Is like, I don't know, is Steve Austin Dude Love underrated from Over the Edge 98? Like, to me, it's not mentioned among the best WWF matches of all time, and it should. I think it's like the definitive Attitude Era match.
I know you've stated it's your favorite Attitude Era match on the show before, so yeah, I don't hear people talk about it or revere it as much as I hear you do, Kyle, and I don't think you're wrong about that. So I think that probably qualifies as underrated.
And again, the Attitude Era is subjective. I'm kind of like talking, you know, pre 2000 post. So basically just 98, 99.
Yeah.
The Royal Rumble 92 in terms of like a star rating versus Meltzer, like I think he gives that 3 3/4.
That's kind of ridiculous compared to like what he's been given last year.
Yeah,
4 1/4.
Yeah, exactly. And like to me, that's a 5-star match.
Yeah.
So if you're looking again, if you go to the star ratings, all right, that's off by quite a bit. Like it would be nothing, the flip side of what I talked about with overrated, like how I think a lot of modern stuff's overrated. I don't think there's anything really underrated, and this reflects a point Justin made earlier, that it's hard for something to be underrated in the modern era. So it would be something like older that's been lost to time.
You know, real quick, speaking of the 92 Rumble compared to this year's Rumble, is there any chance 30 years from now on whatever the equivalent of a podcast is, somebody's going to be able to rattle off in order the entry of all 30 guys in the Royal Rumble?
I couldn't
2021.
Yeah.
Like Kyle did. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you 5 people that were in that match. No. The 2021 one.
The hologram shows in 30 years. Yeah. That's a good question, though, Mike. Thanks for sending that in. I want to shout out here, too, because as I thanked the patrons earlier in the show, after I did that, as luck would have it, we had a new person sign up for our Patreon page just a few minutes ago. I already added his name to the bottom line here on YouTube. So shout out to Ryan Gorman, who's been a strong supporter, interacted with him a lot on Twitter in recent weeks. Ryan, thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. And we got a new edition of Top Rope Nation Classics coming out before the end of the month, so watch for that. It's going to be WrestleMania 22 from 2006. That won the poll over on Patreon. And check out all the Top Rope Nation Classic shows in the archives. It's the only place you can hear them. They're all a ton of fun. I think you'll think you got your money's worth after you listen to all of that. So thank you again for your support.
Got to do another episode of Classic before the archives go away.
It's true. At least till August, right?
Yeah.
So before we go any further, we did put out the phone number, a voicemail line for people to leave us well wishes on hitting episode 200. I cut them all together earlier today. It was a lot of fun. I want to thank everyone who took the time to send us an audio recording or call that voicemail line. We got a lot of great stuff. We're going to play all of them here for you, and enjoy this, and then we will be back with more of your questions here on episode 200 of Top Rope Nation.
At 1-900-909-9900. All on the hotline.
Top Rope Nation.
Hey guys, it's your old pal Derek down here in Memphis, Tennessee, and I just wanted to wish you guys a congratulations on 200 episodes of Top Rope Nation. You guys are awesome. You're great friends. I've enjoyed getting to talk to you wrestling-wise for quite a while now, and a memory that's always going to be close to my heart is getting to hang out with Ryan and Justin all day Friday, going to a couple of wrestling shows, eating some grilled cheese sandwiches and some crawfish, and having a couple of beers. I'll always cherish that moment. Getting to sit next to Kyle Ross during Mercury Rising and talking to him a little pro wrestling during that is a great memory of mine as well. So congratulations on 200, and here is to 200 more.
Hey guys, it's Double G from the Fight Game Podcast. I just want to say congratulations on hitting episode 200. Do you know how many podcasts there are that don't even get to episode 100? People just quit. They have this great idea and then they just fall by the wayside. It's a commitment. I commend all of you for continuing to create great content. It's been great getting to know Ryan this last year or so, and I hope to get to know all of you on the show as well as we do more of these, more collaboration. We need some collaboration between Top Rope Nation and the Fight Game Podcast. Anyways, congratulations again. 200 is a great number. Can't wait to do this again when you guys hit number 300.
Hey guys, this is Greg from Cleveland. Congrats on 200 episodes, and my question is for Sid. Do you have any suggestions on a good mid-range softball cleat? Just starting to get into it, hoping, with the summer I'll be able to, blow off work a couple times and get out there on the field. So any help you could give would be great. I'll hang up and take my call on the podcast. Yeah.
Congratulations, Top Rope Nation, episode 200. I think you guys have the best podcast in wrestling, and that's because you guys are, first of all very smart, and you're all very funny, but you make it about the content, not about yourselves. And I like that you're not apologists, although some have accused Kyle of being one. And I love that you're, willing to criticize when it's right, but you're also not super negative and just shooting on everything. So, awesome show. Can't wait for episode 300, 400, and 500. Congratulations, guys.
Hey, all. This is Gabe, a Patreon subscriber to Top Rope Nation. Want to congratulate you guys on episode 200, and cheers to many more. Thanks. Bye.
Congratulations, Top Rope Nation, on 200 episodes. This is Dalvin here. So I thought of something a little interesting the next time you guys go on video for YouTube. A little wager. The next time you guys do something like this draft or the current WrestleMania draft, the two losers need to get on camera and do the Alex Reynolds dance. No, not Alex Reynolds, the Alex Wright dance. I'm so sorry about that, fellas. Anyway, congrats on 200, and I hope to see you guys around for 200 plus more. Take care.
Hey guys, the Top Rope Nation, congrats on your 200th episode. You guys have one of the best wrestling podcasts out there. Always love your classic shows, and also love your really unbiased look at both AEW and WWE products. So keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to many more shows, and encourage everybody to be a Patreon member because you guys are one of the best out there. Congrats again.
And we're back. Thanks again. Those were a lot of fun to listen to cut those all together. Thanks again for your support of Top Rope Nation. It's awesome to hear from all of you. And hopefully in the future, we can do something like a call-in show or something like that and bring more people on the line. Maybe one of these mailbag shows, but instead of us just reading your emails, it would be actually you coming on the show and asking the question. We'll try to get the technology up to date to do something like that. Kyle?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I joke around a lot about the fans of professional wrestling, but I do want to, if I can be serious for a moment here. It truly is humbling to hear people like talk about how much they like to hear you and listen to you and, actually take time out of their busy days to listen to our show. It's a really cool thing. And we thank you for giving us that opportunity. It ain't worth talking if you ain't listening. So thanks.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is to check the download stats and then to bring up the map that I can do on the back end and just see where the downloads are happening. And it's mind-blowing to see some of the places that this podcast is reaching. Thinking of us just getting together, recording this thing on Zoom every week, and the next day, clockwork, people are downloading it in the UK and Canada and South Africa and Mexico and Australia, all those places we get. I'm sure those people are subscribed because the downloads happen every single week, and then almost every one of the 50 states here in the United States. So yeah, it's great to know you're out there listening. It's great to hear from you. Keep emailing the show, topropenation@gmail.com. We like to get these questions in, but the voicemail line, maybe that's something we can do even beyond a special show like this. I've thought about bringing in the voicemail line for pay-per-view reactions and cutting together voicemails of what the listeners saw at the pay-per-views and mixing that for our post shows. That's something maybe we could do in the future too. Always looking for ways to get the listeners involved, so we'll see what happens there. We're gonna go a couple of rapid fire questions here where I don't think the answers will be super long, but we can get to a few more questions quickly. Derek Chappelle wrote in, asked what was everyone's favorite season of Tough Enough. And by the way, Derek, thank you for the kind voicemail that everyone just heard. What was your favorite season of Tough Enough, and what was the best season of Tough Enough? Love you guys. Congrats on 200 episodes. Derek Chappelle. All right. Well, for me, I wasn't a massive fan of Tough Enough. I guess when it first started, I was pretty into it because it was such a unique concept. So I'd probably just have to go with the first season. That was the one that I watched closely. Either you want to chime in here?
2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They ended up being tough enough.
Derek loves to hear that.
Yeah, the first one is the only one I watched with any regularity. I was pretty into it. Love Maven's dropkick of doom in the 2002 Royal Rumble. What a moment in the history of professional wrestling. Now that's something that's underrated in WWE history. Maven's dropkick of doom. Love Daniel Puder almost tapping out Kurt Angle. That was I don't know if that really counts as a season. That was they were doing a live segment on Raw, but that was fun.
Mm-hmm. It was the first season when Triple H came in and gave that speech, right? That's the tough enough moment a lot of people talk about how tough the business was. That's a memorable part of season 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Not a fan, Kyle?
No. It's a Triple H speech. What do you think my opinion on it is?
All right. So there's a good one.
I am the game.
Here's a question from Aaron Graham up in Rochester, Minnesota. Best live match you have ever seen? Justin, you got an answer for this one? Best live match you've ever seen? Or best moment?
Well, sadly, I really haven't seen a lot of stuff outside of house shows, and house shows are kind of generally forgettable for me. So one that stands out would be WCW Sold Out 1997, the Eddie Guerrero 6 United States. Actually, I think almost all these are ladder matches. That was a ladder match. The 2018, me and Ryan, Supercard of Honor, the 3-on-3 6-man tag team championship. SCU versus Flip Gordon and the Young Bucks would be up there. And then also that same weekend, I think Matt Riddle versus Will Ospreay at Mercury Rising was a hell of a match.
Yeah, we were all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to rank highly. The trio was all in person at that show. Yeah, the Top Rope Nation trio. Kyle.
Thought about this. It would probably come down to one or of two. Either, again, that same weekend, WrestleMania New Orleans, Gargano Ciampa, or going back a ways, Hardy's Edge and Christian at No Mercy 99.
For me, it would have been probably one of them, probably the one from New Orleans that Justin mentioned at Mercury Rising, until I went to Revolution last year. So, I mean, I saw a Wrestling Observer Match of the Year winner with Kenny Omega and Adam Page against the Young Bucks at last year's AEW Revolution. That's definitely the best match I've ever seen live.
What about moments? Have either of you guys seen like a great historical moment that you wanted to share? Because I had a couple, one certainly more history making than the other, that I really loved being in the building for.
Oh boy, let's see.
I went to a house show, and I guess it would have been 91 when Slaughter was champion, and Hacksaw beat him by like disqualification or count out, and somebody in the seat next to me was going freaking wild because they thought Hacksaw was the new WWF champion.
It always amazes me because whenever they do those finishes and the babyface acts all stupid like he's won the title, you're like, who the hell is buying this? Everyone knows the title doesn't change hands on a DQ or count out. And then you tell a story like that warms my heart.
I'm trying to think. So I was at a Raw, I think it was like 2 weeks before WrestleMania 31, and building up to the Sting and Triple H match, and Sting made kind of a surprise appearance on the show. That was pretty cool to see Sting at a WWE televised event. I'd seen Sting in WCW several times, but to see him on Raw, I was like in the third row. That was a pretty cool moment. I guess house show wise, I'm looking back. I was at a house show in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in December of '99, and when I think about the matches that were on that show, the semi-main event was Benoit versus Flair, and the main event was world champion at the time Bret Hart against Sting. That's a pretty awesome house show card. I mean, to see Bret and Sting wrestle and Flair and Benoit at the time. So that was like a cool moment as far as like the star power goes and who was wrestling each other.
When Raw started running Cleveland regularly in 1998, we got very lucky the first two. Mike Tyson joined DX. I was there. The building went apeshit for that. That was so cool to be a part of. We saw a world title change the second time. Steve Austin won it back from Kane the night after King of the Ring 98. So that was cool. And then on a personal level, I'll never forget going to the ROH debut at the ECW Arena, the Arena Warfare show, when they started the angle with CZW. I don't think it started. I think they had teased it, and it actually started a few shows before, where they did a riot, quote unquote, in the building. And I'll never forget Super Dragon running up to my buddy Chad, getting in his face, and Chad just didn't even flinch, man. I'm pretty sure that's how the DVD ends, if anyone has that DVD. Super Dragon gets in this fan's face, and the fan just like mean mugs him back. That's my buddy Chad.
No way.
And then and we were so fired up from this double shot walking home. We walked back to our hotel from the ECW arena. Anyone's been in Philadelphia knows that's quite a hike. And remember, the neighborhood was kind of sketchy, and the whole time home we were just saying to each other, hey man, if somebody gets you, you just make sure these DVDs find a nice home. The plan was one of us was going to give our life, the other one book it with the DVDs, man. Love this sport.
Aaron had a bunch of really good questions. Some of these are short answers. He asked also book recommendations. I mean, we have to throw out, of course, Liam's book, Crazy Like a Fox, which is just a really awesome, I think, top 5 wrestling book, maybe top 3 wrestling book that I've ever read. His biography on Brian Pillman won the Wrestling Observer Book of the Year award a couple of years ago. Well worth checking out. We are actually doing a book club as part of the Patreon page. This is part of our $10 tier where we meet up on Zoom once a month. And right now we're doing a book club We're going to have our first meeting discussing the book here in a couple of weeks over Brian Alvarez's book, Death of WCW, which is a very good book. And in fact, Brian is being so kind as to do a question and answer with our $10 patrons, probably in May or June, as part of our book club. And the audio from that we may put up on the podcast feed, but our patrons, the $10 tier, part of the book club, they'll be able to do a question and answer session with Brian Alvarez. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's a great book. I mean, biography wise, I always point to Brett's biography, Jericho's first book, of course, Mick Foley's.
Yep.
Those are the ones those are like my go-tos offhand. Kyle, what do you think?
No, you nailed them. Those were the ones I was going to recommend. I saw you had the two written down, and I was going to for sure add Foley and Jericho and Brett.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Jericho's first book. Is hilarious. It's a great read, and his stories about work in Mexico are really interesting. Of course, Japan too, but I really like the stories of him working in Mexico for the first time. So, yeah, good questions. Let's see. So another patron of the show, Gabriel Benson, sent this one in, and he said need the backstory on how the three of you came together and when and how you decided to launch the podcast. So first of all, I'll just say, Gabe, you should check out episode 100. This was about 2 years ago now, but I did kind of talk about the history of the show on that one at kind of extended length. I went pretty deep into it, but it was just me talking for the most part. So I don't know if Justin and Kyle want to chime in here on what their personal story is as far as how they came to the podcast, what your experience was like kind of getting involved with doing Top Rope Nation, because Kyle joined the show episode 2, and that was in the summer of 2016, and then Justin joined in January of 2017, and we became a trio from then on. So, I mean, from your point of view, Kyle, how did this show come about?
I think it was a very simple story. Just, two young men of humble beginnings that wanted to talk pro wrestling. So, I'm sitting there, a married man in early 2016, fairly recently married man. And, what do you do? All of a sudden, hey, I'm set for life. I'm going to crank up the old wrestling fandom again, I guess. No need to go out and search on the prowl for chicks anymore. So, yeah, so I was like, I really want to get and talk more about wrestling, get involved more. And it was actually Chad, you can thank or curse his name, who sent me information on your website, Ryan, at the time. I reached out to you. I started writing for the website a little bit. And then you had the idea to do a pod. I was sitting at a bar that night. You gave me a call and said, hey, the guy I do the show with, he's not doing it anymore. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. I've done a podcast before. Sure, it sounds great. And then we were kind of just off and running.
Yeah. The website was Top Rope Press, by the way, which is where the name Top Rope Nation comes from. Top Rope Press was online from 2014 through 2017, I believe it was. And then it was just really hard to juggle managing a website full time. So I just started to concentrate on the pod and then just kind of writing on my own without juggling, the back end of webmastering, and doing all the HTML coding. And yeah, the whole webmaster gig was a lot of work, took a lot of time away from the family. So I decided if I'm going to cover wrestling, I want to do it on an established site, get paid for my time, and then do the podcast for fun kind of thing. And so, yeah, Kyle jumped in episode 2, we were off and running. And now, Justin, what was your experience joining the show?
Kind of the same as Kyle's, where I was writing a little bit for your website, but we'd been friends going back a lot farther. Got invited to do a guest spot. I was terrified, but apparently I did good enough that I kept getting invited back.
Yeah, I remember you stopped by my house to, because Justin and I live in the same town, stopped by my house to get an old headset microphone I had so that we could record that night. And then eventually Justin invested in a better mic, which he has now. But yeah, I thought you did pretty dang good right off the top. And we're like, yeah, let's keep him around, make this a trio. But Justin, you were like a dedicated listener to the show before you were part of the show, because you used to always send feedback. You would listen the release day, you'd be texting me what you thought of the show. You were like our biggest fan those first few months, and then you joined the show and how that all worked out. And as I recall, you didn't get to do a show with Kyle until around a month in or so. So the first time we were all together was pretty funny. You guys are joking around like, oh, it's an honor to be on the line with Kyle Ross finally and all that.
Yeah. That's right, because it was like football season back then. And, oh, you know what? You know what happened in January of 2017, something that no one gives a shit about. My wife and I, we moved into our current home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we were very busy at that time.
You can see some of those shows, by the way, from January of 2017. If you scroll way back on our YouTube channel, there's videos of them if you want to see how we've aged in the last 4 years. Yes. What children have done to us.
I thought you were going to say that people could see pictures of my home. I said immediately take those down.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. You guys covered it. I mean, I'd always wanted to do a podcast. Kyle told me when he started writing for the show, for the website, that he had experience podcasting, so he made a lot of sense, and it just worked, man. It meshed well. Every week I look forward to talking to these guys. It's a great break from working and family life to just set up the microphones, talk wrestling to all of you, and with these two. So there you go. I mean, that's how it came together. All right, what else do we got here? Stuart, he's active in our Facebook group. He sent a couple of questions. He said, what's your personal Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers? Ooh. Now, for me, this is a really tough question because I have, of the 4 spots, I have 3 that are a certainty, and then that 4th spot can kind of change depending on the day of the week. My automatics are Ric Flair, Bret Hart, and Randy Savage. Those are like my top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. And then that 4th spot that flows, I mean, it could be, sometimes it's Shawn Michaels, sometimes it's Steve Austin, you know, sometimes it's been Kurt Hennig in the past. I don't know if I was a big fan of The Rock too. I don't know who, if I had to cement someone in, Daniel Bryan's in the mix too. It'd be pretty difficult, but the other 3 are like a certainty for me. Justin, who would you say?
Oh man, I guess I'd have to look at it. I'd want to kind of spread the wealth a little bit, not group just everybody in maybe just a few years of my fandom. Bret Hart is definitely on there. Shawn Michaels, Daniel Bryan, and probably Shawn Spears.
Great. By the way, if you're in the chat, let us know your own personal Mount Rushmore. If you're on the live show stream here on YouTube, I'd love to hear yours.
That's Kyle? Double S Shawn Spears, a wrestler's wrestler, according to MJF tonight. Yeah. So my favorite wrestler growing up, I think one of the first conversations Justin and I ever had, you mentioned that first show we did together. I think I've talked about this, is he was aghast when I told him I had no favorite wrestlers really anymore. I just kind of rooted for whoever was doing well at the time. But growing up, that was not always the case. Ricky Steamboat was my first favorite wrestler and his pursuit of Randy Savage in the Intercontinental title. Shawn Michaels, 1993 to 1997 would probably be my favorite wrestler as a kid overall. Really celebrated his whole catalog during that era. Despite what I said about the Iron Man match earlier.
And his influence on NXT.
Yeah, 21st century Shawn Michaels, I've cooled a little bit. Like I'm not nearly as high on that as I was his 90s run, particularly the heel with DX, even though it wasn't that long of a period. Just loved asshole Shawn Michaels in 1997 with all my heart and soul. Flair, Daniel Bryan, are absolutely on the list as well. But it's hard.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta tell. When you were rooting for Ricky Steamboat, you were what? 8, 7,
6.
So let's say this is a surprise question to both of you guys. If you were 6 or 7 now, or in the last 3 or 4 years, who do you think your favorite wrestler would be?
Ooh. So I don't know. The whole thing with Steve, it was like that perfect storm where when I first started watching, it was that big angle with Savage. And despite those atrocious speech therapy segments, I still found a way in my heart to root for Ricky Steamboat. It would have to be like, I don't know. I'd have to put myself in the shoes of a 6 or 7-year-old, what angle really affected me and caused me to be a fan.
Well, that's like my first thought when you were talking about that was like, I bet it would have been like the whole Gargano Jason Ciampa stuff, that maybe Gargano would have been your guy.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a really hard question to ask.
Because we're post Cena. You know, obviously, Cena would have been the answer probably 10 years ago.
I
think probably Roman would be up there for a young kid.
Yeah, I don't know. Want to hear a real depressing answer? If I was 6 or 7, I don't know if I'd get this product.
It's true too. It's very true. Also, I mean, are you male or female? Because I have daughters, and I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they both love Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. Those two. And they're really starting to get into Bianca Belair too. And they don't hardly watch wrestling at all. They're not sitting there watching it with me weekly, but like once in a while they'll come in the room when it's on, and they only want to watch the girls. I love Becky Lynch. Now she hasn't been around in a while, but my oldest daughter can remember watching her, and my youngest daughter has kind of taught her about Becky Lynch. Or my oldest daughter's taught my youngest daughter about Becky Lynch. But I mean, I can see for like young girls how they could get kind of into the product now, because they're getting so much more exposure on television, and they have portrayed the women in a better light in recent years. But for young boys, I don't know, it's pretty difficult. Hard to say.
Yeah, that's almost an impossible question to answer, but a good one, Justin.
Frank from PW Torch in the chat. What's up, Frank? Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to the channel while you're here. Greg said in the chat his Mount Rushmore: Hogan, Flair, Austin, Rock. There you go. Biggest names of all time for each era. All right, let's get to a new question. What else do we got here? Best arena to watch on TV.
This is an interesting question because the WWE product is so homogenized now that you basically don't know where you are unless if they bring it up.
Right.
I have been watching, because the archives are going away very soon, for a little bit. Hopefully not for, hopefully it all comes back. We're all got our fingers crossed. Been watching a lot of World Class. I want to make sure I get through all of it until the big, Cotton Bowl show where Kerry beats Rick for the title, which I've seen before, but I just want to watch all the TV. The Sportatorium is a cool watch on TV. Again, when you're at the Sportatorium. Obviously, it's where they ran all their TV, but so that was kind of like fresh on the mind. MSG obviously would be on the show because it's unique. WWE does not do that very much now, but when they did, it was cool. And had one other one, and I can't remember it. So you guys go, and maybe it'll come back to me.
So, do you want to go first, Justin?
Nope.
Okay. For crowd reaction, it's the Allstate Arena. It's always the hottest crowd in wrestling. Chicago, no doubt about it. As far as like visual of the arena goes, though, it's a little more difficult. Allstate looks like pretty plain on TV, but it's super loud. It's like by far the loudest arena I've ever been in, and that comes across on TV. I would say I really liked the look of those early Manhattan Center Raws. I thought those were pretty freaking memorable as far as just like the visuals of them. I like that small setting. I guess call it old school or whatever, and the Elks Lodge too kind of has, that feel too.
Yeah. Yeah, the only time the Manhattan Center looked bad is when they had all those nerds in there for that dual venue Raw. A couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Oh,
remember? And all they got was Matt Hardy versus Bray Wyatt for like 3 hours.
Yep.
Joke's on you guys.
Yeah, that wasn't great. They did a documentary on that too, didn't they? I think they did.
Like the 24.
Yeah,
it is.
like the behind the scenes.
I really enjoyed just its uniqueness. I'm freaking blanking on the actual name of the venue, but where they held the NXT UK title tournament that Tyler Bate won.
Yeah. Yep.
That one looked great.
Yeah.
Oh, where they, is it the same place where they did the show in 91?
Royal Albert Hall? I can't remember if that's where it was or not.
Oh, okay.
Might have been. I mean, that would rank highly. Liam's like rolling his eyes right now. Listening to this. You guys don't know which one that was.
Yeah. No, that was like so awesome. Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah, Royal Albert Hall, the 91 show had a sweet
with the Undertaker theme on the organ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, other than that, I can't think of any US venues where just like the look of them is so different from another place that it really stands out. Yeah, of course, like the stadium shows always stand out. Whether it's Mania or I guess Rumble they've been running lately, but it's a good question. While Kyle's researching that, maybe you can answer this one with me, Justin. Which wrestling shows do you watch first? Like in what order? And for me, it's Dynamite right now is like the first. If I could watch one show a week, it's Dynamite, no question about it. After Dynamite, I'd probably go with SmackDown, then NXT, then Raw. All right. Yeah, I just really don't watch Impact. Just out of, I'm not even ranking New Japan in this right now because I got to catch up with New Japan. New Japan is certainly putting on a better product probably than Raw right now. But like, as far as like U.S. companies, AEW, WWE, looking at their main television shows and not factoring in Ring of Honor either, that's the order I would watch. Dynamite, SmackDown, because it's such an easy watch, and Roman's the best thing on WWE right now. Yeah, then NXT, then Raw. What would you say, Justin?
I mean, it fluctuates depending on how good the product is. And right now it's Dynamite's like number one, and everything else, it all just depends on what happens. Cause none of the other ones I watch live.
Yeah.
So if I hear about something cool, if I think something sounds good, I will go back and watch it.
Nice. Kyle, what'd you find out? What's your answer to this question?
Okay. My answer to the question is exactly what Justin said. I, tonight and last week, excluded, almost always watch Dynamite live. And then the other shows, I wait and it's, what I hear about, via what they're saying on Twitter. If people say, this is a shitty show, I don't make it a point to watch WWE programming. Right, that week. I'm pretty cool. Like I can play catch up, the week leading up to the pay-per-view. I don't think the TV product, quite frankly, demands you watch it live or every week. I think you can just kind of catch up the best of going into the pay-per-view. With the UK stuff, they were the Empress Ballroom the first year, and then they were in Royal Albert Hall in 2018.
Okay.
So.
Nice.
We are half right.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What's another quick one that we can get to here?
How about the Scorpio one? You have to talk about that, man.
Where's that one at? Do you remember that one offhand?
It's in the middle of the first page.
Oh, yeah. From Greg?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. The one that starts out, you don't have to answer this. We're going to do it anyways.
Those are the questions I want to answer.
Yeah, you don't really have to answer this, but I just watched some old Raws from 1998 with the Job Squad and had forgotten how great Scorpio's working punches were. Got me to thinking, he should have been bigger, right? Size plus look plus the way he could move in the ring, it's almost a no-brainer. Not great on the stick from what I remember, but in the late 90s, there were guys like Lance Storm who still made an impact. No pun intended. Your thoughts? Take it away, Kyle.
So Scorpio, by his own admission, was his own worst enemy. He had drug issues, and that held him back. I loved his early 1993 WCW run. Like when he first came into the company, he made his debut with Ron Simmons in a 2-on-3 match against the real Rogues Gallery team of Cactus Jack, Tony Atlas, and the Barbarian. There's a 1992 team for you if there ever was one. So yeah, I always agree he had talent. Loved him in ECW. He really found himself. The final night in the promotion in ECW is great. You could see Scorpio as a star because the crowd knew he was going to WWF. As they didn't know as Flash Funk, but they knew he was going to debut at Survivor Series the next night. And they were giving him the old "you sold out" treatment. And he hit him with, "You damn right I sold out. I sold out Madison Square Garden tomorrow night." Now that is a way to clap back at the fans. But yeah, working punches, that's a lost art now. And, it's funny he referenced Scorpio's 1998 WWF run. I was watching, you guys remember, I'm sure you do, the New Age Outlaws Cactus Jack Terry Funk angle where they pushed him off in the dumpster off the stage. So I forgot how long they laid out and let that angle simmer in. Like, they went through the whole next break. All the boys in the back came out, were checking on them. Vince came out, was like giving the Outlaws a tongue lashing. There was some real cool stuff going on. And one of the coolest things was Scorpio like wanted to fight the Outlaws, and the other wrestlers were having to hold him back. And it gave this aura of realism to the whole angle that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Flash Funk character, good theme song. But, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really... If you were familiar with Too Cold Scorpio, you were like, what is this?
It was like a shitty WWE version of Too Cold Scorpio is what it was.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, Justin, you were a big early 90s WCW fan. I mean, what was your take on Scorpio?
I mean, I thought he was cool as hell, and then it became Flash Funk.
What happened to this man? Yes.
I just can't imagine going from one of the coolest names in wrestling history to Flash Funk.
That match he debuts in absolutely reeks. Vader's team versus Yokozuna's team, and they do a finish where all 8 guys get disqualified, and there's no winner. Absolute cow dung.
2021 booking?
25 years early.
Yes. Chad said in the chat, this is going back to the venues question, but he said wrestlers like Austin said Rosemont is their favorite because the wooden roof makes the pops louder. That is exactly right. I've noticed that every time I've been in that venue, you look up and it's just these big wood boards across, which is how arenas used to be built, and it does make it so much louder in there. I was at Mania 22. We're going to talk about it on the Classics pod for Patreon here in a couple weeks and talk about the live experience there. But I mean, that main event with Triple H and Cena and the chants, I had never heard a crowd that loud in my life before. I couldn't believe how loud it was there. And then I saw a concert there. Boy, this I guess would have been 6 or 7 years ago. I saw Garth Brooks there. I'm not a big country music fan, but loved Garth Brooks growing up. Had to see Garth Brooks in concert when he went on tour again. So my wife and I went there and we saw Garth Brooks, and man, my ears were ringing pretty bad after that show because it was so loud. That was a hell of a trip for another reason. I don't know if I've ever shared this story on here. I'm going to share it anyways. Nothing to do with pro wrestling, but one of my proudest moments as a husband was the night or the morning after. This isn't going where you think it's going. The morning after that concert. So we get back to the hotel in Rosemont and we're exhausted from the show. You know, we might have had a drink or something afterwards. And when we went to bed, the hotel room next to us, these people got in, you know, country music fans with like flannel on, and they were so obnoxiously loud, like all night long till 4 or 5 in the morning. We got like no sleep. So we're driving back to Iowa in the morning, about a 4-hour drive. So my wife, this was all her idea. She's like, you know that channel on Sunday mornings, because it was a Sunday morning, where they play like the church service? She's like, turn it to that channel and crank it. So we go over to the door of the hotel room and we like maxed out the volume of that TV so those people that were partying the night before could hear it. Throw the controller back in the hotel room, slammed the door and ran off. They were hearing that all morning. Love that story. Nice job to my wife. But
wow.
Yeah.
Heel Megan.
Yeah, Megan really knocked it out of the park on that one. But yeah, no, Rosemont is a great place. I'd like to see a wrestling show there again. Hopefully in the future. Maybe all of us could meet up in Chicago. That would be a fun time.
Kind of a halfway point, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. I got time for a couple more. Anything else we want to hit here for sure? We had the Urban.
I like the WrestleMania, the 8-match WrestleMania.
Oh, yes.
One. I thought about this.
My question, he said, this was Stuart too. He said, my question would be, you have to do an 8-match all-time WrestleMania card, but you can only use the same guy once. My God, this is tough, man. You go ahead, Kyle. I'll start trying to jot down a few.
Okay, so my first quandary was, if I use Bret Austin, that means, you know, 2 of the top guys are going in one match, obviously. And so I started doing the math, and I was like, all right, let's say that's off the board. Let me try to build 8 matches. And I was kind of getting stuck at 7. So I decided, as much as it pains me, it's my favorite match in company history, I'm going to leave that one off the board.
Wow. Wow.
I'm going to leave it off the board. And hey, it was the first pick in the WrestleMania draft. Hey, I'll let that stand on its own. I'll always have that. So
vote for me in the poll. He just admitted it himself.
There we go. All right, so let's open my 8-match WrestleMania card with the best opener in WrestleMania history, Bret and Owen. So there we go. I use Bret Hart. And then we'll go with that's not the best opener in WrestleMania history, Justin?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, you made a face like it wasn't. Well, guess what, Smarty Pants? If you don't think it was, guess what my number 2 match on my card is? Daniel Bryan and Triple H from WrestleMania 30. So I've got both of them on there. So what do you got to say about that, pal?
Okay. I only made a face because I would much prefer to see Bret and Austin rather than the Bret and Owen match. I know, we vary a little bit there.
You don't like the Bret and Owen?
Yeah, no, it's a good match. I don't like it as much as other people.
That's odd. You like the
Um,
Iron Man match? You don't like the Iron Man match better than Bret and Owen?
For in-ring quality, no.
Okay.
I hope I'm not stepping on any toes here for other matches. My thought for an opener would be Savage Steamboat.
That's on my card, but
Okay,
but I'm trying to
sorry.
raise the prestige of the Intercontinental title by putting it on later in the show.
okay.
Middle of the card, we're gonna have it was a world title match, but too bad that wasn't a caveat in this rule. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, they will not be used again. And I'm not doing because Justin just mentioned the IC match I'm taking. I don't have to worry about not doing Shawn and Razor, because I'm not picking that. I'm going to pick the TLC match from WrestleMania 17. That's 5. I'm not picking Shawn and Razor in the ladder match because I'm picking Shawn and Undertaker at 25. That's 6. Austin Rock. And let's close it out with Hogan Andre.
Wow,
That's
3
my 8
world title matches.
Hey, we'll see it again this year.
As a pro wrestling fan, I got to say, not realistic. Not realistic.
That wasn't a caveat to, have a true card construction.
Oof, this is tough.
So that was, the issue was when I love Bret and Austin, but I picked it and I was having trouble then getting to 8, believe it or not. That was the problem. I could not really get to 8 with, all the guys I'd use.
Did you have Angle in there anywhere?
What Angle match? Like, if you picked an Angle match, you would pick Michaels, and I would prefer Michaels Undertaker.
Well, I was going to say Angle Kane, but fine. Maybe HBK.
Angle Kane?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
What other Angle match? You could pick Angle Lesnar, but no. I use Lesnar with Roman.
How about we do Daniel Bryan and Kofi, and then we can do Angle and Rousey versus Triple H and Steph.
You could. You could. But you'd still then, I think. Well, I guess you did. You added a match then, right? Okay, yeah. So I guess. Yeah, you could do it that way.
Great. Signed, sealed, delivered.
I think I got 8. Here we go. Bret Austin, HBK Taker from 25. Give me Rock Cena. Get them both on the card. The first one. Brian Orton and Batista, the main from 30. Flair Savage, Warrior Hogan, Brock, Reigns, and Rollins, and then Angle, Rousey, Triple H, and Steph. No, Justin.
It's an 8-match card.
I'm just anti all these world title matches.
I'm just trying to pick the best matches I can
Yeah,
without repeating guys. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
It's
an
tough.
8-match card.
It is tough.
That's fine. Okay.
Not using the same guy once. We don't have rules.
I feel like we're devaluing the world title. That's all.
You want to take a stab at it, Justin, or are you just...
Nope, I'd rather just be an a-hole.
Okay. Should we do one last question before we call it episode 200 complete? Is there any others that we didn't get to on this list you guys wanted to make sure?
How about this urban legend so I can make you guys really uncomfortable with the sleaze thread?
Oh, God. Don't get us kicked off the air. You're reading these before we went on the air.
I can't believe you guys hadn't heard something. So I'll just tell a story. So if anyone's heard the sleaze thread.
All right. Well, the question was, what's the best story you've heard or urban legend in the wrestling business?
Okay. So I had to go to the sleaze thread. And people can Google DVDVR sleaze thread. Number 12 on this list, which I won't read, but it involves the Rock and Roll Express, Jimmy Valiant, Glass Table, Hookers, Jizz, Poop.
Oh, man. Open up this can of worms. All right.
I remember telling this. I was on the previous podcast I did many years ago that Ryan referenced. I was telling this story. We were repeating this in the Air studio, and the producer overheard. He goes, "That happened in a match," and we're like, "No!" But I laughed so hard at him saying that. I hit this wall in the Air studio, and a clock that was on the other side of this wall went flying off and hit this guy, Ken, right in the head. And he peeked and goes, "What's going on in there?" I said, "The sleaze thread, man. The sleaze thread."
Yeah. I don't know that I have like a favorite urban legend that I've heard. Like obviously the Andre stories are high ranking. I had a chance almost 2 years ago now, pre-pandemic. I guess this would have been the summer of 2019 to sit down at a local brewery as part of the Hall of Fame weekend here in Iowa with Tim White, the handler, best friend of Andre the Giant for many years. And he told some stories about going out drinking with Andre. I don't know if I'm at liberty to share those on air. In fact, I told him I covered the wrestling industry for CBS at the time. And he was like, "I got to be careful what I say to you. You might put it out there on the internet." So I will, I'll try to keep Mr. Tim White's trust in case I run across him at the Hall of Fame again. But he definitely confirmed that, the stories of Andre drinking 106 beers and all the wine and all that, definitely accurate. And they had some wild good times together.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Can you look in the chat of our Zoom call? And did Tim White tell you anything about number 60?
Oh, God. He did not tell me about that one. You guys will have to check the sleaze thread for number 60 on that one. Google it. You can find it. All right, guys. This was it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this tonight.
What was your favorite episode that we ever did?
Oh, man.
The next one.
It's always the next one.
Well,
we've had like some fun WrestleMania post shows. I thought it was fun, even though we had some technical difficulties. We did one show together in person. I was actually living in a place that I only lived for a month. I was between houses at the time, and sometimes when we're going for walks around the neighborhood, because it's only like a block away from where I live now, it was like this twin home we were stationed in until our house was done. I'll casually say, "Oh yeah, that's where we did the podcast with Kyle in person." That was fun though, to we all sat around the table and did the podcast.
I feel that didn't last long because we wanted to go out drinking and there were technical difficulties, and we just sort of said fuck it and threw in the towel.
Yeah, you can find that in the archives. It was like in June of 2018. I think the title of the show is The Live Cast, but it's the only time we've recorded together in person. So just because of that novelty, that kind of ranks up there for me too.
The only time I've ever been in the state of Iowa. True story.
Yeah. I think our first show post WrestleMania 34, when we had all met up in New Orleans, was a lot of fun. And Kyle joked about an experience that Justin and I had at our B&B, which took me a second to realize what he was referring to. And when I did, I remembered. Oh, did I remember well? That was fun.
Love all of our Top Rope Nation classic. People, obviously it's going to sound like a shameless shill.
It's not, though. I mean, those shows are a deep dive. They're so much fun. Yeah.
I mean, these guys know how fired up I was after the last one we did on the main event, Hogan Andre. I was like pumping my fists saying we fucking nailed it. And I mean, I was really very ecstatic, but all of them are quite good. And there was like a WrestleMania we previewed that was really good. I can't remember if it was when we previewed 34 or 35.
I think it was 35, the one that you're talking about. Yeah,
that was that was a really strong effort. But I enjoy all of our shows, quite frankly.
Yeah. I'd love to know what the listeners' favorite shows are in the history.
Yes.
Let us know, because I want to know what you guys have really liked and what stands out for you. If you have a thought, send them to topropenation@gmail.com. Read those emails on the air next week. That would be a lot of fun to get your take on a favorite episode of the pod. So, yeah, I guess that's been episode 200. We hit pretty much most of the questions from the mailbag we wanted to make sure that we hit tonight. Had a couple drinks while we were at it, had some laughs, heard your voicemails. That was great. Thanks for calling in again. Got a new patron. Thanks again to Ryan Gorman for signing up. If you want to join him and the 14 other people on our Patreon page, it's the best way to support the show. You'll find the link in the description here of the podcast. And, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the pod, Justin and Kyle, I could not do this without you guys. I've done a couple shows solo in the last 5 years, and it was very difficult. Very, very difficult. So I always appreciate having you guys on to carry my ass. I appreciate that. So
anytime. I mean, no. You don't need us. No.
Yeah, right. Justin, you were the perfect addition to the show when we went to a 3-man crew. Always appreciate seeing you, and hopefully we can all enjoy a beer in person again real soon. Really, really hope so.
Thanks, guys. I don't know how, there's been a handful of times where we were set to record and going into it, either my head or my heart wasn't ready or didn't want to record. And every single time by the end of this, I don't want the conversation to end.
Agreed.
So, thank you guys.
Agreed. 100%. Thank you to the listeners.
Oh.
Yeah. Kyle?
Hold on.
Uh-oh. What's he getting? If you're listening on the podcast version, you're probably going to have to check out the YouTube page, at least for this section of the pod. He's going behind his bar. I can see his reflection in the poster. What's he going to bring out? My bet is an LJN wrestling figure that he's purchased this week, since that's kind of been the trend the last couple of weeks. Okay, he's making his way back to the front of the bar. Nope, it's a bottle.
It's a very large bottle of tequila I have. I know it's St. Patrick's Day we're recording this,
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't have a big bottle of Jameson behind the bar. I have this big bottle of tequila instead. And it lights up, too. It's real fun.
Nice.
Yes, Justin, that's the big reason why I bought it, because it lights up and it's
Should we do a virtual cheers to
yes,
episode
that's
200?
what I was thinking.
All
We got to pour one out for here. Look,
Popping open another beer.
I'm doing a shot right now.
Victory Dance is the perfect title of a beer for ending this podcast. Justin, you got something in the glass?
Yes, sir.
All right. Whiskey?
Hold on.
Scotch?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
This will make me sleep like a baby tonight. Gonna sit on my
That's
ass
a
for
massive bottle.
Yes. Ugh.
Kyle's a tall man, and this bottle looks like it's at least half his size.
So here, this is like on the bar. It fits up more than the whole screen. Yeah, it's pretty big. But yeah.
All right, virtual cheers to 200 episodes of Top Rope Nation. Two gentlemen couldn't do this without. Cheers, fellas.
Salancha.
Cheers.
Oh yeah.
Tastes like the best damn wrestling podcast out there.
Oh, there we go.
Tell your friends. And with that, we'll be back with our Fastlane post show late Sunday night or Monday morning if you're checking your podcast feeds. If you want to join us live, youtube.com/TopRopeNation. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be talking to you real soon. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Peace.